what I chose to talk about was inspired by what I experienced a week and a half ago. So my sister is 21 years old, really beautiful, mature girl, and she got married a week and a half ago.
Awesome.
And it was such a beautiful wedding, and the pre-wedding and the Sheva Brachos after the wedding, 7 days of celebration, the Shabbat Sheva Brachos, and it was just, and I participated more in this, the ceremonies of this wedding than I did with any other wedding, myself including, and I came to think a lot about, this young couple. He's 23 years old, she's 21 years old. They're going to Israel for a couple of years, like an extended honeymoon. And I was thinking about they're establishing here a relationship with the intention of making it last forever, right? Till death do us part. And it got me to think about the fact that most people have that experience where they have this relationship. And I like to use marriage and relationship, those things are interchangeable. Marriage is a defined relationship. But people that want to have these long-term relationships that really going to last through thick and thin, and I wanted to explore the reasons why there's success and or what are the keys to making it work, and what are the pitfalls that cause marriages and long-term relationships to unravel. And I want to direct the conversation at one of the Sheva. Everyone familiar with the term Sheva Brachos? Haven't heard the term before?
Yes, 7 days.
Yeah, Sheva Brachos means seven blessings.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why it's called 7 blessings is not because it's 7 days. It's ironically it's 7 days. It's 7 days as well as 7 blessings. But every meal, including the wedding included, and under the chuppah, the chuppah is the wedding canopy. Under the chuppah, they say 7 blessings. Right? Under the Jewish wedding ritual is 7 blessings. And then at the end of the meal, there's 7 blessings. And then every subsequent meal and the Shabbat experience is all these 7 blessings. And I never really spent so much time actually examining what these blessings are. It means we're starting here a marriage, and we're giving these blessings to the couple, and one of them just stuck out as being very strange. What is it? I'll say it in Hebrew, then I'll translate it in English. Samech tשמח, רעים, האהובים, כשמחך, יצירך, מקדם. That's one of the blessings. What it means is, make happy. It's a prayer to God to make happy this young couple, just like the happiness of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden years and years ago. That's what it is. And it means I'm thinking my sister and my brother-in-law, Esther and AJ, you guys should be happy as Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. So there's a few problems with this. First of all, why is Adam and Eve used as the pedestal or the example of a happy marriage or a happy relationship? And this is compounded by the fact that if you actually go back to the beginning of Genesis and read the story of what happened in the Garden of Eden, it actually wasn't such a happy story. It started off maybe with some promise, but before you know it, there's the sin, right? We have the serpent, we have the sin, we have Adam and Eve pointing fingers at each other, right? They're pointing fingers at each other, they're each blaming the other one, and how is that representative of the kind of marriage or relationship that we're striving for? Anybody? What you got?
I'm not sure, guess.
Mine were guesses also. I was just thinking about it.
In a certain way, Adam and Eve can be seen as the ideal couple because they were part and parcel of one another, separated, and then reunited. So if you think of it as puzzle pieces, they fit each other exactly in that sense. And I don't know if other couples have that same.
Means they were totally compatible with each other.
Yes.
Now, what Yigal is referencing is something that you actually cannot find in the actual text, but it's in the in the commentaries and especially in the Kabbalistic commentaries. It talks. If you take a look at Genesis 1:27, it describes this man that God creates as being masculine and feminine. And the Talmud in Subot 8a says that actually, at the beginning, the first Adam was not male nor female, rather a blend of the two, and subsequently was separated and then reunited. Which I didn't think about that, but which indicates that they were not only soulmates, but the whole idea of Bashert, but really they were just two parts of one whole.
Exactly.
In a real sense. Thank you so much for giving us your home.
My pleasure. I'm Jerry's father, Gladden.
I know you, man.
I know. I was telling everybody else.
Okay. You can sit down if you want.
I'd love to. I had a friend of mine turned 60, so we had a birthday party.
Nice.
No, I'm fine. I'm going to say hi to Mom. I'll join y'all if you don't mind. Go check.
Yeah. So I didn't actually even think about that. So yes, well, and I like it, but there's a problem with that argument. It means what you guys are trying to say like this: we want young couples when they get married to think about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, everything was perfect, but with us, not everything's perfect. So what advice are we giving to the young couple once they're already married? Hey, you guys should be like Adam and Eve; they were totally compatible. Once you're married, it's too late to think about compatibility.
Good point.
But I still think the idea is true. It means compatibility is before you make the selection, before you choose which item on the menu you're going to select.
It also doesn't necessarily indicate why happiness is a part of that blessing.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Then that would work out because.
Compatibility
Exactly. Sometimes people are in relationships that there are things about the other person that irritate them, and the reason why they irritate them is because they're not compatible. And it's and that's something that's going to be a major obstacle, and that's something to try to avoid for sure.
Does the story of Adam and Eve talk about happiness when they were living in the Garden of Eden?
It doesn't really say a lot. If you read the story, the whole Genesis story, it's very little information. And actually, in Jewish philosophy, we say that the entire beginning of Genesis is written in sod. The word sod means it's a secret. It means the real meaning is hidden. Remember, our whole theology is described in 31 verses. Right. Obviously, it's everything about the universe. The beginning of the universe is described in 31 verses. Is that really all we have to say about the issue? Really, 31 verses? How many books are there in theology? It's not all we have to say. It's just a snapshot. It's a hint. It's a secret.
But they stayed married and had kids and so on and so forth, right?
What? It does tell us a story.
Maybe that's the happiness they're referring to.
Well, one kills the other. So.
Yeah. It's not like they had to live happily ever after, right?
I guess there's no way to find the happiness in the story.
No, I do think there are elements that are very unique to what Adam and Eve experienced that I think are representative of something that's very important for us. Because what I came out with is that really this blessing that we give with the bride and the groom is all about commitment. It's all about commitment. How so? In, I think it's the second chapter of Genesis. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the story. It says is that Adam was looking for a mate for himself. He took all animals. There was a male and female for every animal, and he's like, and for Adam there was no counterpart, right? And then he was put to sleep, and then one of his ribs was taken out, and they built out of his rib. God built that Eve, and then Adam says, "Zos hapam etzem matzoma." This is this time, like this animal, this creation is like part of me. And then and then the next verse is the first documented self-help, right? First documented self-help is at the second or third chapter of Genesis, and it says like this: "Alkane, therefore, Ya'azov ish, a man shall leave, et aviv ve'et imo, his father and his mother, v'davat be'ishto, and cleave to his wife, v'hayu lebasar echad, there should be one flesh. It's like, hey, Adam was so happy that he finally has a partner, has a counterpart, has a wife, right, who's similar to him, who's someone who he can relate to. And therefore, a man who's reading this document years later, you should leave your parents and cleave to your wife and become one flesh. Now, that statement is a little bit strange. Leave your parents. What are we talking to? We're talking to these nice Jewish boys who can't get away from their mother. Leave your parents. It's not good to be too much with your parents. Don't spend so much time with your parents. Leave your parents and go cleave to your wife and become one flesh. It's a little bit strange.
Well, it's like cutting the umbilical cord. Like it's
the first
now
step.
You have a new person to be with.
What do you mean? The second they
when they get married, now you leave where you're from and start something new.
well, yeah, but remember, even young, nice Jewish boys that can't get away from their mom, it says Ya'azov et ish et aviv et imo, his father and his mother. You got to leave them both.
Yeah, you're leaving the life you came from for a new life to start a new family.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, you're leaving one household and you're creating a new one.
Okay. And this is all, remember, this is in the middle of the whole Genesis story, right? We're all into Adam. Adam just met Eve, and he's so excited, and God formed Eve out of one of his ribs. Boom, a piece of self-help. When you get married, leave your parents.
And
right?
FYI, Adam didn't have parents.
Well, that's also another good point. All right, but it says the way it's set up is I think it's very strange. It's like, okay, Adam finally met his wife. Boom, self-help. Therefore, a man shall leave his parents, cleave to his wife, and become one flesh. So I think is that what's going on here is like this. In order for a couple to have a deep relationship that's going to last, and not only that, a deep relationship that's going to be blissful or fun or pleasurable, or to really get that experience of sharing your life with someone else, you have to have commitment. You have to be totally intent. When Adam is all excited about Eve, right? He's all excited. This time it's a bone from my bone. What's he saying? Is there a physical bone? Well, obviously there's multiple layers of understanding. Are we talking necessarily about a physical bone, a physical rib? He's missing a rib. He's got only 26 of them, or he's missing some vertebrae. Is that really what it means? I think it means much more than that. I think that what he is telling us is the proper outlook that you have to have when you want to have this relationship. She's got one of my bones. We're two parts of one whole. I'm totally in it. I'm jumping, taking the plunge. I'm not dipping my toe. I'm totally committed, right? And then he has the happiness, and then he has the bliss, and then he's finally satisfied with Eve. After he realizes that she's part of me, we're two parts of one whole. She has my bones, right? Which is illustrative of the idea is that we're bound together. We're one unit. We're committed to each other. We're not just experimenting. We're not just, let's see if this works. And if not, we have the emergency exit. He's totally in. Then he's happy. I mean, what I want to do here, I want to take the idea of commitment and flip it on its head. Traditionally, when we talk about commitment, we're talking about retention. If you want to retain something good, you've got to be committed to it. Right? You have a good marriage, or you have a good relationship. Okay, you want to make sure you don't lose it. So what do you do? You add layers of commitment. You make sure that you're dedicated to it. You make sure that you're invested in it. You take steps to preserve it. It's an idea of preservation, retention. That's what I always thought about commitment. What I'm saying here today is that commitment is not an idea of retention. It's also about retention, but it's much more about how to get that relationship. It's not just, okay, you have a relationship, let's preserve it with commitment. Commitment is what's going to bring about that special feeling that comes with this unique relationship, unparalleled, in our life experiences. When Adam is saying, "Oh, this time she's part of my bones," he's not telling us mere physiological. Maybe it's also physiological, but what he's telling us is, this is my attitude to my partner. My attitude is, I'm totally in. We're two parts of one whole. I'm totally committed. What comes after that? Adam's finally happy. He's finally calmed down. He's finally relaxed. He says, "Okay, now I have that experience that comes with being together with someone that I'm going to share the rest of my life with." Commitment brings about that experience of a relationship. Means people think, okay, you know what? I'm going to get married. I'm going to show you all my prenups, everything in order, and just in case it doesn't work out, and then while it doesn't work out. Okay, it didn't work out. So thank God I have the prenups. What they don't realize is the prenups and all the emergency exits and the fear of going all in, that is what caused it to not work out. The separate bank accounts and separate TV clickers, fetchers, right? Which are all things to try to minimize friction. Well, that alone precludes them from having this kind of relationship. And the second they don't have that relationship, well, it didn't work out. Thank God we have prenups. That's my first argument from Adam. What Adam teaches you is that the attitude, the experience, can only be gotten through commitment. We think of, there's love. Once you're in love, you want to make sure you don't lose it, right? Oh, you lost your love, right? You fall in love, you fall out of love, right? Cupid shoots these arrows, and it's crazy. Who knows what could happen, right? Suddenly you're in love with the secretary. It was all natural, right? It was, the Cupid does crazy things, right? And that's what we're told. When in reality, it's not like that. It's the love, that experience is brought out by that commitment. There's only one way to tap into that experience, and that's to be all in. That's to be committed. That's to think about two parts of one whole. I've said the story before about Rabbi Aryeh Levine. I'll say it again. That he once went to the doctor with his wife, and he said to him, Doc, my wife's leg hurts us. The doctor, right? Or my wife's leg hurts us. So it's a cute story, but it's also indicative of the kind of relationship that is one of commitment. You're really trying to be one unit. You're really trying to get rid of all your own personal identity and develop a new identity. And this is the challenge of building long-term relationships. It's one of I have the way I view myself. And my outlook on life is all product of how of who I am. I am as an individual. If you're going to go into this relationship, your identity is going to change, and that's very uncomfortable. So Adam here is directing us through a whole process. He's saying commitment, a bone of my bone. Oh, then you have the happiness, right? He's like, hey, well, what happened? That's pretty cool. I was committed, and now I'm all happy. I don't need it. The animals didn't give you that kind of experience. And then he comes and gives you a piece of advice. Right? We said the first documented self-help. Okay, therefore, every man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, v'hayu lebasar echad, and there should be one flesh. It seems to be a little bit out of place. Then what he's telling you is like this: leave your father and your mother. Doesn't mean necessarily leave that, pack up your stuff, put them in a box, and move them to a new house. It means your father and mother is your identity. It's where you grew up. It's the town that you grew up. It's the outlook you have on a million different things of life. In life, we are a product of our homes. We're a product of our families, and that's our identity. If you want to really have this kind of relationship, you might have to leave that, because your identity and your spouse or your the person your mate, they have different identities. You got to make sure if you really want to go into this, you have to drop those, or you have to be ready to compromise on your father and mother, i.e., your identity. as an individual, unique, singular entity with a singular identity, you cannot open up to someone else. You can't be committed, you can't be dedicated, you can't cleave to someone else. So if you want to have this experience, Adam's telling us, you got to first be willing to drop your own personal identity. V'davak be'ishtad, cleave to your wife, and you're making a new identity. V'hayu l'basar echad, you should be one flesh. Right? So this could be interpreted, obviously, in many different layers. What it means to be one flesh. What it means is you're taking two people from two backgrounds, from two identities, and you're morphing them into one identity. And that's, I think, part of the idea that we're telling our young bride and groom. Adam had it all figured out. When you establish your relationship, make sure you do it like Adam did it. Make sure you recognize commitment brings about love. It's not the other way around. Commitment, being all in, right? That's what engenders the relationship, or this ideal relationship that we're all looking for. But also, you have to be prepared to deal with some trade-offs. There's going to be trade-offs. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. It's not possible. You cannot have this special relationship, this most unique, fabulous relationship in the world, and still retain all these little mishagasim that you had, that you have with your own identity. You have to open up yourself. You have to come to terms with your own vulnerabilities of your own identity, and that's part and parcel with the whole experience. You have to do it. Follow the advice of Anna. There's 3 steps here. Number 1, you have commitment. It's just be all in. Number 2, that is what brings about. Commitment begets that experience. But there's going to be challenges. What are those challenges? Aviv v'imo, father and mother. Your identity, your experiences, your outlook. You cannot take that with you and hope the other person changes it. You have to morph into V'hayu l'basar. You should be one flesh. And a man shall cleave to his wife, create the new identity.
All these are said after the wedding, correct?
I'm sorry?
All these things are said after the wedding? Or?
Well, they're said under the chuppah, under the wedding canopy is the first time we say it was actually, it is after the wedding technically, but the actual marriage kicks in with the presentation of the rings, with the ring.
Once you're married, this is the advice for while you're married? Or?
I'm sorry?
This is the advice for while you're married, because they kind of should tell you this before.
I'm sorry?
They should tell you things before.
Well, some people are in relationships. Some people want to have relationships. What our goal here is, we're trying to figure out, what are the principles, and the principles to happy, healthy, harmonious, sustainable relationships is, I think that this is a crucial point. I'm saying I've in my marriage and divorce class, which is available online at rabbiwalby.com. Shameless plug.
Yes.
But I talk about this five C's, and Jared knows the 5 C's by heart. The 5 C's. I'm sure if you haven't heard the 5 C's class, I'm sure you've heard me mention it. There's 5 C's that contribute to good and bad marriages. And even if you're married, great. This is important information for you to know. And if you ever would like to get married, till death do us part, you have to know really what that entails. It's not an easy thing, and that's a lot of people are confounded by that. These tremendous challenges that go into making it last, and they don't. Humanity's success rate in this area is very, very low, very slim, and the reason why people are so miserably bad at making marriages work is because they don't know, in large part because they don't know what goes into it. But I think that, when our sages established rituals and blessings, they did it with tremendous foresight and tremendous knowledge of the Torah, the lessons contained in the Torah, but also, human nature. And they're telling you, be like Adam. So what that prompts us to say, okay, fine, what was so special about Adam's marriage in the Garden of Eden? What was so special about it? And I think this is one lesson that we could glean. And that's the idea of, it's really a couple ideas. It's the idea of commitment and the idea of commitment not only being a way to retain a relationship, but also a way to bring about the relationship. And number two is the trade-offs and to recognize what it is. Why is it so difficult for us to have lasting, sustained relationships? Because we have an identity. And if we want to have that thing, we're going to have to compromise on our identity. Compromise or be willing to walk away from it to create something new.
How do you create a new identity if you don't bring with it what you've earned?
So for sure, your identity will be a product, obviously, of his side and her side, and they come up with things together. But lots of people think that they come from this. I remember thinking as a teenager, I was thinking, my family is the most dysfunctional family on planet Earth, right? And then I get married, and met my wife's family. And then, well, that is true. Well, and my brother-in-law, so he's dating, is looking to get married, and I said to him, I promise you, whoever you marry, to a certain degree, you'll think, my gosh, this family is even stranger than my family. And he's like, no, I don't believe you. But it's true. Well, we have our perspectives, and if a young couple try to sets up their life in a way, the best way possible, try to take the benefits from each side and try to build something even better.
Or take the dysfunctionality from one side.
Right, that's so that was the first thought I had. Let's see what time it is. 8:50. So that was the first thought I had. I have another thought. We under the wedding canopy. So the tradition is that the bride surrounds the groom 7 times. I'm familiar with that. And this is, remember, these symbolism, these rituals are all there for a purpose. I think that that symbolizes the total commitment. The second, until you make this decision to live your life together, right, till death do us part, I'll tell you, you're a free agent to do whatever you want, right? You're a free agent. The second you're under that wedding canopy and you're getting married and you're serious about it and you get married, right? We start this binding process, right? You're getting bound together, and you're taking the plunge, right? Like the example of the two people, with the cold pool, right? There's always one person that slowly tries to. And they never manage to overcome the cold, right? The cold water. Or maybe in Houston it's the opposite, right?
You're a second rabbi that's used the term free agent.
Oh, is that right? But those are the two attitudes with the cold pool. And then there's the other guy who just jumps in, and then 2 seconds later it's painful, but 2 seconds later they're totally acclimated. If you try to dip your toe in, it won't work. If you try to take it a little bit at a time, it's not going to work. Why won't it work? It won't work because that doesn't give you the experience. I had one more thought. But feel free to ask whatever you want to ask. It's an open forum. Trevor, you can ask whatever you want.
I got it.
Anybody else? You got what you got.
I don't know.
What about you guys in the back here?
I was associating the pain of jumping in with the pain of marriage being, but that gets better, but that's not what we're saying. We're saying when you're going to jump in, jump in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Total commitment. I had another thought. Right, this is a little bit less esoteric, or less an intellectual principle, and just a practical principle. And I think it's also related to the idea of commitment, and that is that flashback to Adam, right? Adam and Eve, right, in the Garden of Eden. Who else is around?
Serpent.
The animals, okay. How many humans are around? Nobody. Right? It was just Adam and Eve. Right?
There was no shopping.
There was no shopping. Exactly. There was no, and the way I mentioned the menu, I used the menu. Free agent, or you
No
have
draft.
once you make the selection on the menu, they take away the menu. Right? Once Adam, it was just her. That's it. He didn't see anyone else. He didn't know anyone else. He didn't experience anyone else. He didn't say, oh, maybe she's better, or maybe she didn't say maybe someone else is better. Once you make the decision, there's no one else in the world besides for your, for the person that you dedicated your life to. I told Bronwyn that I bought a bunch of couches now. Next time I come to my house, there's couches everywhere. And then yesterday I bought it from Costco, but yesterday I went to Costco again. I'm like, oh, I saw like a much cheaper couch. It looks very comfortable. I'm like, hey, maybe I should return that one, right? And that's sometimes people say that. We got married, it was really nice, but then I saw someone else, and I got to know someone else, and it was even better, and that's typical.
Buyer's remorse.
It's buyer's remorse. And the experience that Adam had was like, hey, there's no one else. And we have to, we're telling the other couple, hey, you want to be happy like Adam? Adam might have not have been happy. He had other troubles to deal with. But it was just Eve.
Eve got kicked out of the garden?
Right. Like you said, it's not like it was just,
sunshine and rainbows.
It was not that. Flowers and daisies.
No. Sure.
But still, from a certain perspective, it was just them two, right? And it was them two against the world. And, every challenge they went through together. Because really no one else existed. And I think we're telling the couple, you guys are getting married. And it's a very, very, very populated world. Some people would argue that it's even overpopulated. But there's lots and lots of people in the world. And if you have the attitude of Adam and Eve, where no one else exists, besides for your spouse, you have a fighting chance to succeed. No one else exists. And I'm not just saying this as the argument of infidelity, not to sleep with anyone else. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying even to notice other people, even to compare, God forbid, your spouse to anyone else. No. It's too late. You made your selection. You made a decision. You chose what you want from the menu, right? You signed a deal with the free agent. Whatever metaphor you want to use. Once you're under the wedding canopy together, tell the bride and groom you got to be like Adam and Eve, right? Was it contentious? Was it was it all
sunshines and rainbows?
Sunshines and rainbows? No, it was not. But still, to a certain degree, it was just them two, no one else. And even for us in contemporary times, we have to try to get this attitude of, okay, if I'm still a free agent, if I'm still right before you sign the contract, you're free to roam, right? Once you make the selection, right? Once you're committed, right? You're Adam. Nobody else exists. And this is not just, like I said, it's not just a way to prevent mistakes. It's also, or to prevent, buyer's remorse. It also help you to focus on the person that you're with. Starting a relationship with someone, and like we said, to cleave and become one identity, that demands a lot of attention. From both sides. If they're really going to build something special, they're going to have to get to know each other, right? Have to get to know each other in a really deep, profound way. No one else can interfere with that. It's just them two. So it prevents mistakes. But B, it's also a way for them to build something really special. So those were my thoughts. Indeed, Adam and Eve teach us a lot about how to really build long-lasting, impregnable, which does not mean not pregnant. It means impregnable, but relationships. And I think that today, like in modern times, in today's society, we have the additional challenge of marriage being viewed as somewhat of a temporary.
That would be great.
Hot also. Speaking.
But like a jacket.
Yeah, you can kind of die and ruin for the last hour. Are you sure?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's over. Copy jacket.
I speak, I get
Want me to turn down that fan?
I like to keep it on.
Well, now it's good.
Anyone else? Wish I could my copy jacket?
You'd have thought I'd be wearing the rabbi's jacket.
Actually, when I was dating my wife, she gets horrified whenever we talk about this. So I only dated one girl. That's it. And it was in Israel. We did it in Israel. She flew in from Canada she was there in Israel. I was studying yeshiva, and she was there because she had a friend's wedding, whatever. Somehow we met, and we were dating. So I think it was our second date, and it was Jerusalem in January. It's pretty cold, especially at nights. So we were walking somewhere, and she was like indicated that she was cold, and I offered her my coat, and she was like all horrified. So, it's like, but she's like, she does not know how to date. That was her response.
Did you offer her your jacket?
Whatever. She was like, yeah, because you don't know, like, who are you? It's still like, who are you?
You were on a date, or this was before you?
Huh?
This was like
Yeah, we were dating. But we had just like met. I don't know, it was our first date or second date, whatever. But anyhow.
Sounds weird to us because as Texas John, we always give our jackets to
There's a puddle. You put the jacket on the puddle.
feet can't get wet.
So in contemporary times, I think that it became much harder because of society viewing marriage as. Remember, why do people get married? Do we know why people get married? It's about the reason why is because marriage symbolizes commitment. It's not just a serious relationship. It's a really serious relationship. But even marriage, while once being considered sacred and special, and it became society's attitude towards it became much more lackadaisical, much more. It's much more drive-through or whatever. Drive-through divorces. I was just on the way to the airport in Newark. This big sign, massive sign. Divorce, quick divorce, $399. Is that cheap? You don't even know. Is that a lot? What does it typically cost? And a little bit further, it was like $999. Quick bankruptcy. Is that? I don't know if that's super
drive-through chapels.
But I was like, this enormous sign in Newark, New Jersey about a quick divorce, $399, no questions asked, whatever.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Nope. Can't.
What you got?
Obviously, commitment and taking the plunge and all that is ideal.
Okay.
But divorce obviously happens.
Okay.
And even the most ideal societies and states, it's a necessary thing. At what point should that be a consideration?
So, to take the example that I gave earlier, and to bring it a little step further, I've said this before, is the idea like what the verse in Genesis says, that you're becoming one, right? So, and the example that I gave, that famous story with the rabbi who said that my wife's leg is hurting us. They're one. Imagine it as one body. I view a divorce as amputation in this example. So why would you cut off your leg? That seems so right. You would only do it if it's
Good analogy. Yeah.
That would be the example.
But you still can't control another person.
I understand.
But it's like, I think it's like you said, like if you
It's when you feel like
if you are committed and you do like jump in and you make yourself one identity, then those things, you're sure about those things, it's not going to,
But I also think what Bob is bringing up is like, hey, what if one party's into it, one party's not into it? And I think that's true. It's not like people are evil, that no one wants to be the only one working. It's people don't know. People don't understand the principles. They don't understand the principles about what makes it work and what makes it fail. So if you you have someone that you want to make sure that they're dedicated as well, like that might be a game changer. Hey, if they're looking for some discardable relationship, then that's not the right person for you. But if they are committed, so you say, hey, commitment. I'll go to rabbiwolbe.com and find that class that he gave and just explain to him why commitment is so important and understand the principles and the theories behind it. So yeah, you can change other people, and it's
A lot of it, I think, is also a product of upbringing. Like I was raised in a very traditional house in Iran, Persian society. It's almost unheard of.
But that's
It's
an idea.
changing a lot, though.
But that's an idea. The idea is that I know I have all my Persian friends. They say that their parents tell them like, Once you get married, that's it, right? But what you're saying is that your background, ingrained within you the idea of marriage being committed. So it'll be much easier for you. People have to understand why. It means you have it. It's inborn or ingrained. It's innate.
I think you told me the story about someone you met who said that he wanted to get married so he gets his first divorce out of the way.
They got he's still one of my friends, but he's been vilified in a few of my classes. Yeah, but that's really true, and that's an attitude based upon also his upbringing. But once you understand it, I think even if you don't have that kind of background, your family doesn't have that kind of tradition. Still, it's like you understand it and you're able to modify. And that's what I got. What you got, Jared?
Well, I think this is maybe more of a new phenomena, perhaps, but I feel like our generation, with you can say it's technology, you can say it's society, whatever it is, but it's a very me generation. It's a very individual. You chase your dreams, you do your thing, you're the only person like you in the entire world. There's a very strong sense of identity and self-empowerment.
But it's also
self-empowerment. So my question would be, that fusion of two people becoming one. Is there not something to be said about having still some sort of self-identity outside of that relationship?
Yeah, but think about it. You're going to marry someone also who's very talented, very good looking, right?
Yeah, why can't
And
that
so-
just be about we?
Yeah,
Exactly.
We can do that together.
Yeah,
As
and
opposed to you doing it yourself.
I think the idea of empowerment.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that
I'm just
the idea of empowerment is very important. You want kids, especially kids, to feel like they're special, they're unique, and they have abilities and follow your dreams. That's a very positive thing for a kid to have, and that's why it becomes all the more difficult to. Well, it doesn't have to be selfish. Also, even if you're very able and very successful, you can still share your life with someone else, and even if they're both successful.
I think you made an interesting point, though, that from a social perspective, it's very individual driven, but that's not necessarily in every society.
True.
We live in a very independent minded society, whereas going back to the example I gave in Iran, or in a lot of Asian countries, for example, just speaking off the top of my head, it's more of a communal based society. And the question is, what do you bring to the table for the group?
I feel
Now,
like
what can
some
you
of these.
extract from the situation for your own personal growth?
I feel like some of these issues are really issues that would have been covered in the dating section pre-marriage. Not like okay, I'm on the FEMA and I'm gonna go all in and I'm trying to figure out how to.
I feel like
I'm trying to figure out how to keep my pride and identity.
Or it's saying that that you should be like this. Like it's a blessing. It's not necessarily like he's sort of using it, which it's good to use it.
But he's also but
this is what it should be. But at the same time, it's saying, well, you're married, like you said, you're all in. So we hope you're happy. Now, was this the best marriage? Was this the best person for you? Well, hopefully you were compatible. Otherwise, you wouldn't be married.
right.
But unfortunately, like you say, sometimes for the guy who's looking for his forced divorce, that's not really the case. And so, we're saying these blessings in the hopes that yes, that they should be happy and that this should be a successful marriage. But if you do everything wrong in the first place, is it realistic expectation that the marriage will be successful?
And I think some of these issues that we're bringing up right now, like keeping our individual identities and trying to do it for me and do it for my family name, or do this so I can get famous for developing this app or whatever is.
I mean, I don't know.
Are issues that are pre-marriage.
I think
things.
that I think for everyone.
If you haven't adopted that into your relationship, how are you going to adopt that into your marriage?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that he brings up a good point. That's kind of ingrained into us. It's maybe not ingrained into you, or maybe I'm somewhat more in the middle. But that's something that you have to like work towards, I think, consciously.
I understand that we as a generation as a whole have that issue, but individually we all have like people that we find.
Are you trying to say that before getting married, there should be a serious conversation about what each person's goals and desires are?
Yeah,
for that individual person? And
of
how,
course.
you know,
I mean,
there's
if you're just dating for the ride,
just
I mean,
making sure we're all.
if you're going along for the ride, I mean, you're missing the important questions
You also
that
have
are
to
going to
keep in
last
mind
the
that
rest of the time.
in a lot of, especially Orthodox circles, there isn't an extensive dating period where all those things come up, and you get to see what exactly 100% that person's personality is in every kind of situation.
Right, so you got to ask the right questions.
Maybe that's why we stay married.
Right, and that's a step for a separate discussion about dating. Lord knows I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Like, I went to a wedding and I started talking to some people back in March, sitting at the table, whatever. Like, oh, okay, interesting people, my family's, friend's daughter, good friend of mine, her friends, her future husband's friends, as soon as they walk up on the bima. It's like, I can have an interesting conversation, be friends with these people. And then, of course, you hear something along the lines of, oh, I'm trying to be a neurosurgeon out of ego, I'm doing it for me. It's like, well, it kind of turned all the women off. The single ones, too. So that's why I'm just kind of like, I don't really want to have a conversation with this person anymore. And it's like, don't you notice the signs? It's like, this guy may be cute and handsome, but it's like, you want to live with that?
Of course.
I think there sure is a way to have a very ambitious and successful professional life and still not be on an island and still like live your life together and go through the challenges together with with your spouse, your mate.
And that's like part of like figuring it out before getting married. Some of those right questions: what works? What are your nuances and things
So
like
my point is that you can't figure everything out.
You can't figure everything out.
Something new
No.
every day.
Of course, you're not going to figure everything out, but hopefully you'll figure out like some of those big major pieces before you go on.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, you it's kind of like writing an essay. You funnel down, right?
What you got, Jared?
I was just saying, in terms of that identity of self and being able to define yourself still as an individual, is it possible that the characteristics, the quality in your partner, my wife would hopefully be the type that supports me in all of my personal and vice versa. And that's a quality that I guess solves the problem. And that's where, like, for Mr. Dr. McDreamy neurosurgeon, like, there's probably some girl out there who wants to, like,
Like an egoist. Yeah,
and that's fine. But and that's what I guess made me think of it. Like, there's got to be there's somebody out there who's like all in it for Dr. McDreamy.
Okay, everyone, thank you all for coming, and thank you so much to the Dubins.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It was great.
And it was
I
great.
learned a lot.
Oh,
I'm gonna go tell Mom.
I have a couple of comments.
okay, let's hear 'em.
In January 14th, Sherry and I have been married 35 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jerry. Has anyone ever jumped in a cold pool before?
Yes.
Physically?
Oh, Russians
I did it once.
Russians do it all the
Okay.
time.
I did it once, and I'll never forget. And it does take, a few minutes, but then you acclimate yourself to the temperature or whatever. But marriage is a work in progress. As much as you can think about before, as much as you can, and you mentioned a good point in the Orthodox community that the dating process isn't quite the same, maybe conservative or reform, etc. And especially with the change of times. But as much as it's a work in progress. There's a lot of learning. Okay, as much as I agree with you that some of these issues should be discussed way before you get under the bema, okay, if possible. But it's evolves over a period of time, and as many things as you can sort of look at the radar and say, okay, we're going to have my career, she's going to have her career. family values, her background, my background, which I think is very important. Sharing a lot of those things going in, that we have a better chance to make it if we have similar values. There's no question in my mind about that. But you adapt. My family was probably more dysfunctional than my wife's family. Okay, so I love my wife's family. Okay, that's just the hand I was dealt. You don't know about all that until you don't know about it during the engagement process. Everybody's on their best behavior, and then when you have that, when Jared turns 2, and you have the birthday party, or you have this, and
tell us more.
You know, baby birthday. I could talk all night about Jared, but I won't do that. No, so it's a work in progress. You learn as you go. And I think the ideal thing is to have a spouse that is on the same page as you, but they're not always going to be on the same page. We're not always going to agree. Especially,
no one says you have to agree all the time.
Right, no, absolutely, because that's what brings
what's
into
your
the relationship.
What's the identity? The identity is we're in this together.
The identity is we're in it together, and you have a united front.
And you're compromising your own individuality.
And you're compromising a part of your own, not necessarily career, but in my particular case, I do a lot of volunteer work, which has taken me outside the house and not has been around as much. But my wife was very supportive on that. Where a lot of my friends did not choose that path, and therefore, because their wives weren't as supportive, okay, and they were home more, and that's just part of who I am. That I married someone that was very supportive of that, okay. But even after 35 years, as my parents were almost married 66 years, you're still learning. There's always going to be things. There's careers, there's finances, there's children, there's in-laws, there's your parents, there's health issues as you get older that you have to go through all these hurdles on. And it's a work in progress. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you.
At a location to be determined.
Oh, the jacket.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were right under the fence.
I was. I loved it. It was really fun. Thank you, though.
Okay, names. I
Really?
need names.
I
Lenny.
was free.
Dana who?
Oh, remember
Your
last
name?
name?
Yeah. We're not allowed to
I did. Dana's notorious.
Okay.